How do you tap into the power within? What are the steps?
So the first step is to believe that you have power within, that you have capacity within. If you look at your body, your body is so complex. Look at your eyes; they are so small, but they can see the stars, which are trillions of miles away. So you have within you a lot of capacities that are untouched, untapped. And if you look at a history of people who have been able to achieve incredible things, even though they had some physical ailment and stuff like that, it really makes you realize that there is so much within us that is unused.
But for those who don't believe in themselves because they haven't seen this potential, how do they do that? They believe in others, but not in themselves.
Yeah. So I see it starts with finding a cause. It starts with finding a cause that you're really excited about, that you're passionate about, that you believe in, and you really want to make a difference to that cause. And that gets this excitement started, and you feel that I want to do this. And the more that desire, the aspiration is there, the more you find that you go the extra mile because you want to do something and you find that I can do it. And of course, sometimes you need coaches, mentors, guidance, feedback, which allows you to then get better and better every day in different ways. And also, it's important to take incremental steps. If every day you do something more, then you find that things get easier and easier and easier. If you start to work out in a gym, in the beginning it's very, very hard, but if you keep doing it every second day, you get better and better. You can run more minutes, you can lift more weights, because gradually things become easier for you because you're disciplined and you're consistent.
Okay, so the first step is believe in yourself. What's after that to tap into your power within?
Yeah, so a part of believing in yourself is that, connection within yourself, within your spirit, which is more eternal, right? So the idea is through meditation, through quiet time, when you connect with your spirit within, it first of all tells you that you have a purpose in life. You have an objective in life. You're not just born, eat food, get married, have kids, and then you die. You have much more to do in this life to create a positive world, and you've also been given a gift to achieve that purpose. And therefore, that connection to your spirit allows you to enhance your belief.
And after how long can people see results? And what are the results?
You see, the thing is that nothing happens overnight. Really, it's about process, it's about journey. So, for example, happiness is not a destination, it's a journey to get there. So when you're doing things that excite you, that you're going the extra mile, even the process of getting there is a joy, is a result, is an outcome, right? So depending on what you're trying to aspire, whether it's a long-term goal or short-term goal, the results will vary accordingly. But you may want to create your own measurement criteria, you may want to create your own success criteria of where you want to be in the journey and how you're going to evaluate your success.
How does it help to become a better professional when you tap into your power within? Like, aren't education and skills enough?
So education and skills are important. They are part and parcel of the tools that you need to have to achieve success in life. But when you talk about power within, you see, one of the problems we have in society is that we do not connect our work with our purpose. One of the problems in society is that we work for making a living, for making a salary. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's important, it's your responsibility. You need that money to pay your bills, your house, your children's school, education, all that. However, when your career or when your profession is connected to a purpose, then magic starts to happen, and then you find a little bit of extra spunk, that there is there's a little bit of magic in your aura, in your being, that separates you from the rest.
So when you see a fellow professional or colleague, how do you know if they've tapped into their power within? Like, what will you see?
I think, when you're around somebody who is connected to their spirit and connected to their power, there's something about them that's attractive. There's something about them that is like a magnetic, like, it draws you to them, and you feel peaceful around them because they're always very calm, very centered, happy, and there is the demeanor is there. Og Mandino would say that there's a twinkle in your eye, there's an echo in your voice, your heart is open, there's a smile on your face, your brows are unwrinkled, because there's something happening to you which comes about when you are at peace with yourself, when you are connected with yourself, and you're drawing from the power that you've been bestowed upon.
For those who are already very successful and use the power of logic and their mind, Have they not reached their potential and already tapped into the power within?
See, logic is important, and it can go very, very far. But when logic stops, it's when spirit starts. It's like night and day. It's very, very different ball game, right? As you know, many of the great discoveries in life didn't happen through logic. You know, it's like somebody sitting under a tree and the apple falling, and you say, "Wow, that's how gravity works," right? So those things happen beyond logic. It happens through connection to spirit, to being present, and so on and so forth, right?
And how do you know if you have tapped into the power within? Are you going to hear something? Are you going to feel something? How does it come?
It's more about feeling. It's more about experiencing within yourself that you know that you're getting into that zone. As Michael Jordan was saying. So it's like Michael Jordan talking about being in the zone. When you're in the zone, you're at your peak, at your you know, and people can feel it. People can feel that excitement when you are excited, right? It's very contagious.
Does power within equal happiness in life?
There's a connection, of course, when you're not tapping into your power within, when you feel deep down that you're not using your talent, when you feel deep down you could do more, you want to make, but you're finding yourself getting lazy and distracted because you haven't found a cause that excites you, then it leads to dissatisfaction, right? But when you find something that's exciting and you are very focused and you're getting better and better at it, yeah, you feel happier.
Chapter 11 talks about taming the ego. Why do you need to tame the ego when a lot of the times you need it to gain respect of others and to look confident?
So I think we need to differentiate between positive pride and negative ego. Positive pride is good, that you believe in yourself, that you believe in your capacity, that you're gifted. It's okay as long as it's done to make the world a better place, to create positive change. But when it comes to you becoming so self-centered and putting other people down, then I think it causes unhappiness for yourself. It causes lack of teamwork. It causes fear in you because you're too self-conscious and you worry about your own performance, which makes you weaker.
For those who've relied on ego, how do they now change it to positive pride?
Well, I think, it starts with becoming aware of how ego is making them disconnected to people, how people are not as comfortable being around them, how they've lost some close people in their lives because they have been very negative influences to their environment.
Some would say this is a dog-eat-dog world. You need your ego in order to survive. It's the survival of the fittest, after all.
So if you come across two kind of people, one who is very confident, who is very centered, who believes in themselves, who has positive pride, you have respect for that person, you admire that person, you even may envy that person. Whereas you have another person who you come across who is very self-centered, who just show off, who believes that nobody is like him or her. You have a totally different energy around that person. I don't think that person draws respect from you or admiration from you. They draw more like, you don't want to be around them because they don't make you feel good.
So what are the steps to taming ego?
So I think it starts with finding a goal which is larger than you, because if all the goals are about you, then everything revolves around you. So it's all about me instead of about we. So that's number one. Secondly is to have shared vision, shared goal with other people, family, business, whatnot. So now you're sharing your success with others around you, which also makes you go from me to we, goes from I to us. And so I think that those are things that help you to achieve that. Thirdly, to realize that the biggest satisfaction you get in life is when you help others. It's like happiness is like a shadow. The more you run after it, the more it eludes you. The more you walk away from it, it follows you and sits on your shoulder. So the idea is that when you make a difference to others, you become more and more fulfilled.
Now some would say that first I have to be happy in order to make other people happy. So what about that?
I spent about several thousand hours writing my first book, 7 Steps to Lasting Happiness.
And if you were to ask me one of the key learnings I had in many hours of research and learning about happiness, I found that one of the biggest factor of unhappiness is ego. So instead of ego making you happy, it's making you unhappy, because if you write down all the problems you have in your life, and when you analyze all these problems, you'll find that you are very much, you're involved in every one of the problems. So who's the problem? It's really you who's the problem, and that's your ego.
Can you clarify the difference between ego and ambition?
So ambition is fine, and we all need aspirations, desires to tap into our genius, to tap into our power within. But the purpose of that ambition, what do you want to achieve it for? Is it you are trying to achieve it for so you look so good, it's all about me, 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 me? Or you have the ambition so that if you become successful with your success, with your position in life, you are able to then make more difference because people will listen to you more. You can be more influential with your wealth, with your wisdom, with your capacity. If you're a good sportsman, for example, people start to respect you, and then with that respect, you can, whatever you say, people tend to listen to you more, and you can create a positive world by your influential position. So it's really about what is the intention around your ambition.
Would you say that those who are arrogant have big egos, and they're the only ones who need to tame them?
We all have, by the way, we all have egos. I have ego too. So it's really, the Sufis say that when you say you overcome ego, that's ego. The ego says, I will overcome ego. So again, I is coming in. And ego is very subtle. It comes from the back door. The moment you overcome it, you feel I've done it. And then you feel egotistical, I've done it. So it enters from the back door. So it is very subtle, and it's one of the hardest things to really overcome. And that's why one of the best ways to overcome it is to transform that negative ego into positive pride by connecting to a purpose, to a cause, and then still have your drive about life.
So that means even a humble person has ego?
Well, that's a good question. Superiority complex is ego, but also inferiority complex is also ego. Any complex comes from ego. Why do you have a complex? Because you're so self-conscious. You worry about yourself so much that if you're inferior, that means, again, you're self-conscious. If you're superior, that's self-conscious. But if you're natural, you're not worried about inferiority or superiority, you're just authentic, you're natural, you're focusing on a cause. You want to, every person you meet, is in some way can make a difference to you, and you can make a difference to them. So your life revolves around that kind of making a difference as opposed to worrying about what he thinks and what she thinks.
Now there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. Can you tell us a little bit about that and when you end up crossing the line?
Yeah, so confidence is necessary, it's important to achieve great things in life, because if you don't have belief, if you don't have confidence, then you may not attempt to do things. And most of the time, we shortchange what we can do because of lack of confidence. So that's very important. I think ego comes in when you get in the middle. Like you become in the middle and it's all about you. When you make it about them, when you make it about your customers, about your family, about others, then there is no problem with confidence.
How does ego affect spirituality?
See, some people talk about ego as EGO, which is edge, God out. So one of the fastest way to get away from spirituality is to become egotistical, because what ego means is that you are disconnected to others around you. You see, spirituality means we are all one, we come from the same source. That's oneness. But when you become egotistical, you separate yourself from everybody else around, so you become that drop. Rumi says, give up that drop and become the ocean. And he said, what? I give up my drop? Kidding? I'm the ocean, I'm the drop. But he says, hey, you're a drop, but if you drop the drop, you become part of the ocean. But you don't want to do that because you're so self-conscious and self-centered. So the idea is that when you realize that by being egotistical, you're becoming much lesser, less interconnected with others, and then you realize that the power is really to be connected with everybody else around you. So when somebody is hurting, you are hurting. When somebody is happy, you are happy, instead of the other way around.
So are you saying that ego edges God out because you're not really relying on God but on your own strength?
Well, what it means is disconnection. What it means is disconnection with others. So everybody has a spirit in them. Everybody has divinity in them. And the idea is that the divinity within each person is their godliness. You know, the spirit is in the bark of a dog, in the buzz of a bee, in the color of a flower, in the smile of a child, in the hug of a mother, in the silence of a log, in the stillness of a tree. So there is this spirit all around us, and when you feel connected, then you feel one and not feel separate from others.
How does ego affect business? Don't you need a little bit of ego to make some more business deals, to sell a little bit more?
I think you need a lot of positive pride to do that. I think if you think of ego, what it does to business, say you have a team of 5 or 7 or 10 people, and you have some people in the team who are egotistical. It breaks the team because they are very self-centered, they are not team-centered. So they can be detrimental to your team. If you have egotistical people in your business, they are judgmental about others, they gossip about others, they put other people down, which also causes more problems. Ego also can cause lack of productivity because when you put people down, they feel upset about it, they feel hurt, and that causes a lack of performance. Ego also makes you carry a lot of baggage of the past and future because you're always thinking of yourself, what happened before, what's happening after, and so on and so forth, which causes your results to be detrimental. See, when you are part of a team and working together for a cause larger than all of you, like a shared vision, then there's magic happening. But when people become isolated, they're not as strong. In a football team, if you have a striker who wants to score all the goals, but not willing to pass the ball to somebody else who has a better chance to score, then you'll find that it affects the team because people are more concerned about their personal performance and success as opposed to the team performance and team success.
So what advice do you have for someone who's in a job they love but has to work in a team of people who are egotistical? How do they deal with that?
So the great thing is that they love their job, which is going to feed their soul, their passion, their interest, their enthusiasm, their energy. And when people are egotistical, you see, when you allow yourself to be affected by others, then your ego is also coming in because now you are reacting to other people's behavior. But if you focus on what you do and what you do is right, then other people's behavior does not have much effect on you or doesn't have as bad an effect on you because you are not reacting to people's moods and behavior.
Now you say ego breaks a team apart. However, if you're working in a team with those who are egotistical, not to focus on it, but if they're the ones breaking the team apart, how do you manage this or bring it together?
So I think it's about being an influencer. So if you're a good influence to the team, how can you change people who are part of the negative ego to become a big part of people who are having positive pride? How do you transform them? Good leaders can do that by, if they have the capacity, that they're a leader, they can talk to them one-on-one by talking about all their good qualities that they display and what they can improve on, and part of what they can improve on can harbor around ego. And most people, it's like are willing to improve. They have some weaknesses, and if they are guided in the right positive manner, it could have an impact on their behavior. And you still become a team player. You still help these people who are egotistical in part of the team goals, but don't get negatively affected by their behavior.
Now, can ego encourage competitiveness, which in turn can yield positive results for a company?
Yeah, so if you think of teams like a football team, soccer team playing another team, and there's competition, there is a reward at the end, a cup, a league cup or a knockout cup, then people are driven to succeed. And they're driven to succeed because they want to feel good about their team. We are the winners, we are the champions, and that gets you going. And so, yes, it does motivate you to achieve more because you want to be popular, you want to be successful. I guess my main point here is, what's the purpose of that? Is the purpose just self-glorification, or is the purpose that with the success you can actually make a difference. You can become a coach and help others become successful and improve their confidence and their pride because they're doing better at the sport, they'll improve their health. So if the purpose is noble, if the intention is noble, then the action becomes noble in some way.
Speaking of sports, many athletes have been egotistical, which has led to their success. An example being Muhammad Ali. So how do you reconcile ego and success?
Well, that's a good example that Muhammad Ali always seemed to be egotistical, the way he put his opponents down and the way he showed that arrogance that he was the best and he was special and all that, which led to his popularity and success. Now, if you look behind that success and that popularity and look what he's been doing since then, since his illness and since he's got Alzheimer, you will find that over the years, even when he was at his prime, he fought the war. He didn't want to go to fight the war against Vietnam because he didn't believe that was the right thing to do. So he did things that were important. So somewhere along the line, there was purpose, there was a mission, there was a intention for good things. And I think that's what the balance for him came in, whereby he used the outside to get the attention of people and the attraction, and then he used his success to make a difference.
So using ego and power for good makes it okay?
Yeah, I guess, it's all about where is it coming from and what is the purpose. Because part of ego is, if it's all about you, it's about me, that I get this, so I get that, and that's part of ego. So if it's not to do with I, then even the approach of behaving a certain way is not necessarily egotistically based, right?
Chapter 13 talks about selling. What are your tips for how a good salesperson can sell something?
So selling is an important part in our life. We are selling ourselves when we're looking for a job. We are selling when we are doing business. Even if you are in a different department in a business and not in sales department, you are in some way selling your services because you represent your company. So the starting point is that you believe in the purpose and the mission of your organization, what you stand for. Secondly, you also believe in the services you offer, the products you offer. You also believe that your services and products make a difference to people's lives in some way or the other. And when you have all this part and parcel of your, your repertoire, then you are able to represent it better and sell better because you believe in those products. If you're not using your own products, it's very difficult to sell those products, because if you're not willing to invest your own money on something that you are trying to promote, then people can see that in your, in your demeanor.
For those who had to take the sales job because it pays the bill, and they're not really salespeople or wouldn't call themselves so, and don't really believe in the product, what advice can you give them?
Like my co-author Brian Tracy gives a good example. When he was younger, and he was struggling and he was not doing well, and he took up a sales job because he found people in the sales job very very successful. And so he would start work very early in the morning and work till late at night, and would run from job to job and prospect to prospect. And after a long day of hard work, he found no results. And there was another person in his team who could come late, have coffee, then after a couple of hours go for lunch and leave early at 4, but would sell so much more than anybody else in the company. And he was amazed, how did this guy do it when I couldn't do it, right? So he spoke to this person, and the person asked him, show me your sales presentation. He said, show you what? He never had heard about sales presentation, so he said, you show me yours and I show you mine. And the point was, he never had a presentation, so he found out there's a presentation you need to do in how you go about selling. And then he found out that there are many books on selling. So he read them, many of those, and now he's a sales guru and teaching people how to sell. So you can learn how to become a salesperson even if you start not knowing about it. It's about interest, about desire, about eagerness to learn and to grow and to become better at a job that you have.
So in other words, can anybody become a salesperson?
Well, there are certain type of people for whom sales comes naturally. One of the points I've been talking about in this book is about the uniqueness that you have a certain uniqueness that lends to a certain kind of career, certain kind of job, because that aligns with your power within, with your gift that you're born with. And so there are some people who are natural at selling, who are more extroverts, who like to go out, who like to schmooze, who like to meet people.
and for them it may come more naturally than somebody who's very reserved and who likes to be, who's introvert and so on and so forth. But having said that, if something you want to do, you can probably learn and still do reasonably good.
For those who have strict targets they must reach, sales targets, how can they still be genuine when selling and attend to the customer's needs?
So here I think the issue is short-term, long-term. See, for long-term success, it starts with trust. It starts with relationship, and then comes logic. If you're trying to make a quick sell and lose your trust and lose relationship because you want to meet a number, you might get away in the short term, but once you lose a name, once you lose your credibility, it's very, very hard to regain it. So one has to be wise and look at a much longer term perspective than try to make a quick success sell by undermining the integrity of what you're selling.
I like your point about building relationships, which is very critical for business. How can someone go about building relationships?
You know, if you read this book by one of my favorite authors, Og Mandino, which is called The Greatest Salesman in the World, and he talks about how it is important to care about your prospect, to really wanting to help somebody, and that's your primary reason for selling. And then what happens is you become very interested in the person's pain, you become very interested in the person's needs, and then you marry your product or service to their needs. And if you find that your product or service does not match with the person's needs, then you advise them accordingly. And that builds a huge credibility, a huge foundation of trust, because the person realizes that you are really keeping their best interest at heart.
So if you can boil it down to one quality that makes a good salesman, what would you say that one quality would be?
Belief in their product, belief in their service, belief in their mission, and belief in themselves.
How can a salesman who's really successful maintain humility in such a competitive industry?
That's a great question. You see, this is the way the things work. As you become more successful, it becomes harder to overcome ego, because ego creeps in. And but I think when you are, it's all based on your intention, your purpose, why do you do what you do. So if you are doing selling for the purpose of doing well, financially well, if you're selling products that help people, services that help people make a difference, then your success creates that ability for you to now support your family, be a good family partner, leader, team member, support your children to achieve great success and go to great schools, and then use your affluence to make a contribution to society and to good causes like poverty and education and so on and so forth. And then humility is part of it. But if all you do is to make yourself more larger, drive flashy cars, wear flashy clothes and show off, then it can tread towards ego. So there is no hard and fast rules. Yes, it does become more difficult when you become very successful to maintain humility and purpose, but not impossible. And not, if you see many good examples of people who can have both.
And, you know, to sell a product, you need to know the facts about it and convey that to the customer. But what part does emotions play in all of it?
Well, you know, we all heard the saying that facts tell, emotion sells. So most sales are happening through emotion. Sometimes you like a person, you want to do business with them, so it's all emotional about how to touch the emotional chord, which makes people buy things in life.
But isn't that deceiving the customer at some level?
Well, as I said to you earlier, that the foundation of what you do is belief in your product, in your service, in your mission. That makes a difference. So that's the foundation. So whatever you're doing, you might use tactics, the emotional tactics, to get person to buy. But deep down, you know that it is valuable for the person. If that is gone, then the tactics becomes deceiving, right? But if that is there, then you're actually helping a customer make a decision, because they may not know, whether to buy, not to buy, they're not sure, but you know that from hearing their problems, their needs, this is really going to help them.
Chapter 15 talks about zest for life. Tell us a little bit about how to have zest for life when, you have to work a certain job to survive, that kind of thing. You're too tired. How do you have zest for life?
So it starts with, what excites you, what makes you enthusiastic, what makes you passionate. And if you know what makes you excited, passionate, energetic, do more of that. So yeah, in workplace, maybe you don't have too many opportunities to do those kind of things. But once you know what at work time that you really, really, really enjoy doing. I know for me, for example, in my work, when I'm either speaking or inspiring somebody or reading something uplifting to do some research for my topic that I'm talking about, I get very excited, I get very passionate. However, when I'm doing some administrative work, I get drained out. But having...
That's a good pose.
Started?
Yeah, it's fine. You can edit it out, but yeah, go.
So I was talking about that, if you're doing something that drains you out, then you don't get the zest that you want. When you go home, there's certain things that excite you. Perhaps taking the laundry, doing the laundry, or taking the garbage out does not excite you. But what excites you at home, when you're playing with your children, when you're joking around, when you're eating food together, or going out for dinner, whatever those things are, the more you do them, the more you create zest for life. I'm sure all of us have some hobbies, something that we are excited about. For example, if you come home and your spouse tells you, "Can you help with the dishes?" and you say, "Oh, I'm so tired today," da da da. And then your friend phones and said, "You want to go and play golf?" and you sprint out of the door and you go and play golf and you have a great time, because that's something that excites you, right? So finding things that make you feel excited about life are very important. Also, zest for life comes when you do the right thing. For example, in the book, when Richard, who hasn't talked to his dad for 16 years, calls his dad and feels so good that he talked to him and he's invited him to go to a game together and so on, he felt really good. He hasn't been in touch so much with his child from his ex-wife, and he was feeling guilty about it when he called his son about meeting and going to the game together. Those things made him have a spring on his step, feel really excited about life. So those are also connected to how you feel about life.
Now, how do you have zest for life when you're doing menial tasks like chores, those kinds of things, the boring tasks?
So those are difficult to be excited about when tasks are menial, you get bored. But one of the ways to get excited about those is to be really in the moment, in the present moment, doing the work and making it work, everything that's part of it. I'll give you an example. When I go to social functions, I don't have zest. I don't like to small talk with so many people, and I actually get drained out. So how do I overcome that and have zest when I'm going out? So what I do is, rather than meeting too many people in a big function, I would meet a few people, 2 or 3 or 4 people, and really engage with them and find out what they are doing, be a good listener, get interested in their work, and that gets me excited. So finding ways to make things that are supposedly menial for you exciting is part of how you create zest in life.
So what are your tips on creating zest for life?
Well, I just mentioned one of them, how to go about it. First, to know what makes you excited, and secondly is to make ordinary things extraordinary by the way you do them.
And for those who are born with a silver spoon and have it all, it's easy for them to have zest for life. But what do you say to those who are going through financial difficulties, divorce, illness, caring for aging parents? How do they bring zest for life in?
So if you look at the example of Nelson Mandela, he was in prison for 29 years. And when he came out, there was no shortage of zest. When Viktor Frankl was put to Nazi concentration camp, and when he came out and wrote a book, In Search of Meaning, there was no shortage of zest. So I think you have to be careful when you look people from outside and say they have a silver spoon. We've seen many people with silver spoons, so to speak, have committed suicide and have not been happy and been having addiction and so on and so forth. So it's not really what the external factors do to you, it's how you react to it. When you respond to things that are challenging, you can still create zest for life.
So when someone does have zest for life, what does it feel like for those who haven't experienced it?
So those who haven't experienced this don't know what it is, but they can see it in other people, the spring in their step, the enthusiasm, the energy, the drive, the passion, all this is seen, and therefore they need to create their own to experience it. All done.
Next question.
Some would say Zest for Life is overrated. It's just a show that people are putting on to show that they're happy to the outside world. What do you have to say for that?
We're not talking about zest, which is artificially created, which is fabricated. We're talking about a zest, the feeling that you have within you, which is contagious, which is admirable, which gives you the spunk, the oomph to actually get more done in less time because you're so much in the mood and in the work you're doing.
And how does Zest for Life help in business?
If you have zest for life, you produce more, you get people more excited, you are very in tune with your customers. They like to spend time with you because you are an interesting person to be around, and there's a positive energy at work. So work doesn't become just a means to make a salary, but it becomes a place to create fun and excitement and energy and enthusiasm as part of your earning.
Now, for a workplace that prefers people to be serious, hardworking, get down to business, and Zest for Life is not welcome, what does an employee do about that?
So when we talk about zest for life, we're not talking about jumping up and down and doing somersaults at work. We're talking about feeling deep down a feel of joy and happiness and purpose, and that's what makes you successful. So even in a serious place, you can have that within you without making it like a very kind of noisy and boisterous approach.
Good.
That's excellent because that last question. Oh, it's still recording.
Yeah, it's fine.
Chapter 7 deals with the topic of tragedy. How do people make sense of tragedy?
So in the book, Zoya loses her young brother at the age of 4, and the family blames themselves for the death, and they feel guilty about it, and so they spend many years living in guilt. And so it's very hard to lose a young brother, more than anything else, and most tragedies are very hard to bear. And if you haven't been in that place, it's easy to give advice, but when you're hurt, it's very, very difficult. Now, if you look at a situation when you go into guilt, what happens is you're feeling low, you're feeling depressed, you're not doing much work, it's all sorrow, everybody is down, and so you're wasting your life, your brother's gone, and in some way, spiritually, the brother's been responsible for causing all this misery for the family. Who wins in the end? Nobody wins. So instead, if you said, first of all, the loss has been traumatic, it's hurt, and there's a grieving process, which is natural, and if you want to cry, you can cry. However, if you say, what can I learn from this experience? What can I do in my life that makes my brother's death meaningful? I had a friend, his name is Azim Kamisa, who lost his son at the age of 21. Somebody killed him for delivering pizza, and the guy didn't want to pay the money, so he didn't give him the pizza, and the guy killed him. And Azim was so devastated that he was working 16 hours a day, but couldn't get out of his bed because it was so hurtful. And he went through that period of remorse. But then he formed a partnership with the murderer's grandfather and started talking about not doing violence or having violence to all the schools. And the message was, he said, that America failed my son and the murderer because they didn't teach the murderer it's bad to be violent and so on and so forth. And now he has saved so many lives doing that. So what has happened is he's formed a foundation in his son's name, and his death is a reminder that the death was not in vain because it saved many, many more lives. So in that process, you create some kind of meaning in tragedy.
Now, when tragedy fills people with so much anger or hurt or pain, isn't it natural to avenge somebody's death or avenge what's happened to you?
Yes. So usually, if somebody's hurt you or somebody caused an accident that killed your somebody family member, you want to take revenge. But what does revenge do? Is, as Martin Luther King would say, an eye for an eye makes everybody blind. So the revenge makes you anger, you relieve the loss, and it has a spiral effect of negativity and lack of and bad energy. But instead, if you go the higher level and even forgive, and it's very difficult to forgive, but if you take the approach that I don't know what went in this person when they did such a wrong thing. Maybe if I was born in that family of that person and grew up in the environment, maybe I would be the same. So as Dale Carnegie would say, there but for the grace of God go I, that I didn't do it because I was brought up in an environment, I was taught the difference between right and wrong and what's values and principles. And sometimes you have compassion for the people who hurt, because as Khalil Gibran says, when you see a perpetrator, look deeper and you'll find that that person has been perpetrated first before he or she perpetrates. So those are difficult things to do, but those are the avenues that make you get meaning out of your tragedy and you move on. But the anger and the revenge, you know, if you think of forgiveness, you think when you forgive somebody, you're doing somebody a favor. But the reality is when you forgive somebody, you're doing yourself a favor. Because when you don't forgive, you know, you carry that burden all your life. It affects your food, your sleep, your prayer. But when you forgive, you get liberated, you let go.
Now, people talk a lot about forgiveness and the power of it and the need for it. But no one really talks about how do you really forgive?
So I think the first step is to give the person a benefit of doubt. I know a lady used to work with us, her son died in a car accident, and initially the blame was on the girl who was driving the car, the other car, and that caused a lot of grief and anger and revenge. But when you realize that accidents do happen, and nobody goes to create an accident on purpose, and it can be a very genuine accident where somebody, you know, things happen in life. So I guess you understand that there is more to it than meets the eye. Secondly, people do things because of their upbringing, their environment, their circumstances, and we also, all of us do some wrong things in our life, and somebody has to bear them. That's number two. And number three is, what options do you have? Does revenge fulfill you, satisfy you, or makes it worse?
But those who cause tragedy for others, shouldn't they have to face the consequences versus get forgiveness?
So this is it, right? You know, when you hurt other people, you're going to bear the price within yourself. You can cheat the whole world, but you can't cheat yourself. So deep down, at the deep conscious level, you're being hurt. At some point, it'll come back to you. So, you know, when Viktor Frankl came out from the Nazi concentration camp, they were telling him, what's your revenge strategy? He said, sorry, what are you saying? I beg your pardon? I said, why should I take revenge? Why should I, you know, they'll hurt me. They have to worry about it. I didn't hurt them. So instead he spent his time writing a book called Man in Search of Meaning, that nobody can hurt you without your permission.
Now, often you hear tragedy makes you stronger, but isn't it really a punishment because it puts you down and out?
Well, if you look at the greatest business, look at Steve Jobs. He was born an orphan. You know, he had a tough childhood. He started his business in the basement. He didn't do too well in high school or in college. And then he started his company, Apple, from the basement and built it up to quite a big company. And then he got fired from his own company. And then he got cancer. Look at how many tragedies he had to go through, and look what he achieved. So if you look at prophets, Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, they all went through enormous tragedies and struggle, and yet they're prophets. So there is a message that tragedy makes you tap into your genius. It makes you closer to your creator. It makes you more spiritually inclined and gives you that strength to put perspective in your life.
Does that mean then that those who haven't experienced tragedy are in some way weak?
Well, not necessarily, but if you haven't gone through difficulty, like, you know, there's a nice saying, faith is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. So if you haven't used anything in your life, you know, Rumi gives a beautiful analogy. He talks about a chickpea. He says you take a chickpea and put it in boiling water, and the chickpea gets boiled and boiled and more boiled and more boiled, and the smoke's coming out, and eventually the chickpea becomes cooked. So he says in life, if you haven't been boiled, you're raw, you're nothing. You know, it's only when you get really boiled, you become cooked, you become something, you become substantive. So businesses that don't go through difficulties, through hurdles, through obstacles, through challenges are not businesses that are going to grow. Because as you grow, you face more difficulties, not less.
And how does overcoming tragedy help with business?
Well, as I said to you that, you know, if you want to grow a business, you will face enormous challenges, hurdles, obstacles. and those make you tap into your genius, into your power within, and make you better and more capable of achieving success. One of the examples we share in the book is of Manchester United. They had a Munich crash when most of the key players died, and they would talk about closing the football club, and yet they continued, and guess what? In a few years they were the champions of Europe, and they were one of the most famous clubs in the world even to today after so many years, almost 50 years. So the point is that tragedy made them stronger, not weaker.